Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for Captain America Sentinel of Liberty issue 7. And I like this cover, because, again, it actually details what's kind of going on, and that Cap is now going to be taking on what's kind of going on with the Outer Circle and gathering his own allies to do his own kind of thing. And I like that this was kind of more of a quiet issue, with Steve kind of dealing with the ramifications of Bucky's choice to become the new Revolution and fight the Outer Circle from within, and to then let go of Steve and what he kind of has to deal with that, and how he kind of contemplates that, and then also having Namor kind of help him out as well. So we see Steve pretty much sad, sitting just thinking about what's going on before someone pops up saying, "You lost something, Rogers." Care to challenge Namor to take it back as he's got the shield, and that is just really showcased Namor and the shield really well. It's like, alright, let's see how this kind of works out. And Steve pretty much being like, it wouldn't be exactly a fair fight, and Namor's like, bullshit, you pretty much like would tear apart a tank with 7 holes in your chest. Don't pretend that bug bite of a wound would hold you back. It's not about the wound, it's about how you got it. And it's like, damn, Namor knows kind of what's going on. He knows on that front. And he, of course, pegs it as James. And, yeah, boy, does it miss. You should be glad that you're not dead. And wondering if it was like, what was the final blow to his trust, a woman. And brings up that it was a conspiracy that the Destroyer had brought up. And that evidently he went by the name of, like, Dynamite. And he's like, he prefers the Destroyer. A proud legacy, mostly forgotten. Good for him. And then Steve kind of gives him the whole thing of, like, the Outer Circle, stretching all the way back to the Invaders, and Bucky's joined them, and he keeps looking back and wondering. And it's like, you need not look backwards for answers. For this trap you're in. For a century of progress, you've changed not one bit. And talking about how they've forgotten more time than they've lived, and that, for better or worse, they're the same kind of men that they were on the battlefields back then, where Steve was more in the front, pretty much in the light, for like comrade and country. Bucky was always in the back, being in the shadows, clearing the way efficiently, admirably, that he's a killer and he's always has been, and that he can't really follow him in the shadows. But Steve's like, I can't and I won't. And then he's like, well, then you're going to have to find allies that are more comfortable in the dark. And wondering if he would be one of them, and he's like, please. Like, I got shit that I gotta do under the sea. I've got little time to spend saving your doomed world. It's like, Namor, it's your world too. And it's that kind of, like, inconsistency and arrogance that, like, has to pop up. And he's like, besides, the pressure of the deep has made me a diamond, Rogers. I shine brighter than all. As he's, like, going away, like, yeah. And then he's like, give my best to Dynamite, with a smile. And it's just like, huh. So Namor can be at least considered a people when he wants to be. And then Steve pretty much talks about how he can mend a broken bone in like 2 weeks, but that the bullet still kind of hurts, and that he's kind of going through the day. And I really like the effectiveness of, like, he's in color, but like he's like seeing everything else in kind of black and white, and it's not really kind of coming through to him because of what Bucky's done. That really illustrates how he's kind of like thinking about everything going on. How the doctor's saying that it, like, it clipped his brachial plexus, the nerve cluster that holds the whole arm together, but it missed the artery. And it's like, Bucky doesn't miss. The Revolution was his target, and he was just in the way. And that's what he just tells himself, an arm for an arm, otherwise the pain will be too much. And then he gets pretty much a call from his radio, wondering if there's any kind of other moves on the number stations, that he's got something else, that he's incredibly rich and eccentric, and that he's looking into buyers acquiring things for like home security or tech or whatnot, and that some particular mechanics, who we shall say are rather advanced ideas. I love that kind of way of bringing up, hey, AIM's doing some weird shit. And that these associates found nothing on AIM, that currently no AIM tech on the market whatsoever, which is really fucking weird for AIM being such an important kind of part of the kind of like underground and background stuff in the black market. So it's like, they're either planning something new and big, or something's going weird. And that He says that the destroyer is ready and reporting for duty, as Steve's just kind of trying to think about this whole thing. He's like, another fight too big to take alone, another move too vague to understand, as he's just trying to figure out what's kind of going on. So he kind of goes to walk to clear his head, to like also go to Bucky's place, sees that it's all cleaned out, except for the crystal, and he thanks Buck for that, and he's just like waiting around to see if he'd come home or whatnot, and he's still trying to kind of like process it and deal with it. But then he's like, finds out he's not alone, stepping much too regularly, so he pretty much starts kind of like working his cap kind of way to kind of like get into a position that he has a better kind of advantage, and to make sure that no one else can get hurt. He ducks into the gym and then pretty much bangs his elbow into him, but I was like, oh shit, what's going on here? And we find out that it's like Sharon. And I like the use of this where it's like boom and just in one kind of page, as we then get the panel, as we get them kissing and everything, and that Steve's kind of happy that she's there. So they kind of like shoot the shit. We learn that like Steve's got 2 mugs and that his like friends, his classmates, got him a fucking Captain America mug. This is like, oh yeah, this is funny. You apparently only have 2 cups, which means Steve Rogers made his friends, but he doesn't invite them over. And of course he's wondering what she's been doing. She's like, I could tell you more than the CIA would like. They've been getting a lot of intercepts from foreign theaters with a single word in common, Nomad. I hoped it might be Ian. And Steve's pretty much still convinced that Ian's dead, even though we know that he is alive and working with Sam at the moment. It's kind of weird that they, granted, I guess they compartmentalized enough of the intelligence kind of apparatus, but you would think that the CIA would still be understanding that, like, Nomad would be in play, or that somebody, now granted, they might see that, like, Nomad's in play, but they might have, like, scrubbed Ian Rogers' name from it. I could buy that a little bit more, but it is good that they kind of bring it up, even though we know from the other comic that he is alive. It's just, you would think that Sharon would have more kind of access to that kind of information. And she's like, she knows it's just a war zone legend, but I needed to see it for myself. Meanwhile, you become the one-armed man. Talks about how him and Bucky got into a disagreement. And then for him to tell her all the details after, as we then transition and we see him the next morning, that Steve and Sharon got it on. And that he's still kind of like in that kind of headspace. And he even acknowledges it. He's like, I'm sorry, I know, I'll find my way back. It all must really hurt. And he's like, it does. As they kind of like comfort each other and everything, which is nice. And then we see that Steve's making pancakes and shit. It's like, yeah, alright. That's kind of cool. As she then kind of like does some kind of like, I guess, stitching on him. And he's like, okay, what's the next step? There's Kite Festival in the park, I thought. The outer circle's in the wind, and they've got Bucky. You're really going to sit on America's ass and watch some history-themed sky creeps play the world like a game? I don't know that I have a choice. Their next move is coming, but they haven't played it yet. So's ours. So, like, yeah, if you don't know that, like, granted, understandably, you'd want to have an idea of what your enemy's next move would be, but sometimes you got to make a move. You got to, like, get yourself together, get into kind of a position, understand what kind of information you've got, and sometimes you've got to do the most stupid kind of thing to kind of get them baited into kind of be like, hey, I'm being a stupid idiot over here. But just actually don't be that idiot. Pretend to be that idiot. But it is cool that there's like, okay, we've got a conspiracy on our hands, which we know a thing or two about, and he tried to take him down with a metal mystery man and the man who shot you. Okay, point's taken. What's the alternative? How about you and I make some calls and build a conspiracy of our own? Yeah, get your allies and do some stuff. Ask for help. And it's cool because Steve's then like talking about, as he pretty much suits up and she suits up, that how fast it comes together. Because when you've got Captain America asking for help, who wouldn't? You know what I mean? Like, but that's that kind of thing. Because I kind of have that kind of tendency of Steve of not wanting to bother people. And the thing is, this is bigger than just bothering people. These motherfuckers are trying to control the world. You're going to need help to do this. It's not just going to be like a cell or whatnot. You got to find like a single cell that if you take it out, it's completely done. you need help for this. And he's like, wow, she's shocked by how fast things come together. He just forgot what it was like with Sharon. Things seemed a little clearer for the first time in days. I remember what it's like to have momentum. And that's the kind of thing. Sometimes you're kind of stuck in a kind of rut until you start kind of getting together. You get your people moving together. You start getting information. You start laying out information. Plans start coming together because people are able to think in ways that you might not be able to think of. And how his differences of, like, his war was overseas, but Sharon grew up with the stories under the streets. The bunkers that fought the secret war against fascists in our own backyard. A 6 invite sent with a time set for now and a place set for here. Let's see how many friends I have left, as they're like going to like a little secret meetup place. And we see them all. And it's like, alright, we got Nick Fury, Hawkeye, Black Widow, Peggy, the Destroyer, and the Metal Starpoint dude. It's like, that's good to get everybody there. It's like, and then again, it's who's asking. Of course, Fury's pretty much knocking him out. You know, generally the host is the first to arrive. He's like, hey, good to see you too, Nick. Glad that you're alive with the mess with the stones. And then Hawkeye's asking if it's an Avengers thing, because he's kind of spoken for with Thunderbolts. Might be a conflict of interest thing. And Black Widow's like, no, Hawkeye, look at his face. This is not his Avengers face. And I love that it's talking about how, like, Steve has an Avengers face. If, like, this is an Avengers level thing, this is the Avengers stuff. Though, granted, this would probably potentially be an Avengers thing. As Peggy and Sharon have their own kind of thing. Good to see all of you. Didn't know who would make it, but I didn't expect everyone. What's a private jet between friends? As we see the Destroyers, like, yeah. Roger, great to see you. Namor says hello. My God, put that on my tombstone. Yes. Granted, if Namor does say that kind of stuff, that's tombstone worthy. So it's like, alright folks, settle in, because what I've got to say you can't unhear. And then we pretty much have him giving the lowdown, which is done in a kind of cool way, echoing the cover that we've got, having the shield in the center, getting the information that Dr. Agbaji is a Wakandan who was dispatched to craft what the Americans couldn't for, of course, the Outer Circle. But, of course, he betrayed them to get the message to Steve. He's talking about the Star Points, the Outer Circle. Bucky was one of theirs since the beginning. Let's see. Widow asks if we know who they are, talking about how they're pretty much just like aliases. He is saying that the revolution was just executed, or I suppose in a way the fellow committed suicide. By the rules of their little game, his killer takes his seat, and that man, I do know his name, we all do, as talking about what's kind of going on. Widow first thinks that the Winter Soldier has been reactivated, but Steve shuts that down, saying that no, this is Bucky with his eyes open. He's the new revolution. That they then still have 2 star points in the wind, but they don't know who they are or any other kind of things about them, and that AIM is on the move. Let's see. Widow confirms it by, like, her contacts going quiet, either securing house, as Fury puts it, or securing loyalty. Brings up the whole kind of crystal bit, and we learn that it's Neganite, and that it's mostly theoretical, but it's been showing up here and there. Let's see. Understand the forces of gravity wreaks havoc with its stability, and so it's primarily found in zero-G work. Widow brings up Orchist, or like aliens or Skrulls again. Evidently, Peggy and Roger had to deal with it in 49 with Winter 49 in Mykonos, and that like Sony was going after like a Caduceus staff or whatnot, and somebody being programmed as the true, reprogrammed as the true, from another true villain is like Arnim Zola being brought up into it, and of course with the one that like launched these whole kind of comics. The whole kind of Zola ship. The Thunderbolts have been dealing with like the debris, like patrolling around the entire area, and that there's a facility down there. And then Hawkeye, of course, has a contract with the city, but doesn't know what he can divulge or whatnot. But it's like, oh, come on, man. I mean, sure, there's like NDA kind of stuff, but I mean, this is kind of big level shit. And it's like, all right, that's kind of a cop out. And Hawkeye's like, listen, I'm still getting the hang of this, but if AIM and this Outer Circle, if they're planning on making a move on the Zola site, that means we can set a trap. Hawkeye's like, that's a hell of a risk, but the Starpoint dude's like, that's one we're going to have to take. So they're like, all right, we'll meet in 2 days, Wednesday, and stake out the location. And he's like, it feels good to be heard, good to know that some people still listen. And I get that, Steve. Like, sometimes you've got this weird kind of thing, and you don't know if people will hear you or listen. And it's cool that, like, he's got friends that do. It's like, all right, let's do this. And he's like, all right, to know that the outer circle is about to break until he then wakes up. And some weird spot, some dude's like, oh, this kid's like, hey, Captain America, you alright? He's like, where am I? Can you tell me where we are right now? Baxter Springs, which is in Kansas. He's like, how the fuck did I get into Kansas? And he's asking when it is. It's the best day of the week. It's Friday. As we then see this thing with AIM and this weird kind of thing with a city, it's like, what the fuck happened? And then we kind of get a stinger where we find out that, like, his allies have found themselves scattered across the country with no recollection of how they got there. And then Steve calls for help from the mutant telepath Emma Frost, which should be interesting because I have never really seen them kind of interact together or partnered up together, and that'll be kind of cool. And that she finds out something that chills Steve to the bone, and that they race to save a city under siege by AIM. The Outer Circle's ultimate assassin is revealed, introducing MODOK, the mental organism designed only for control. So, I like this because it, again, was more of a quiet issue that examined how Steve was kind of, like, reeling with the fact of what Bucky had done, and kind of trying to get out of his own headspace before Sharon popped up and helped him kind of do that, kind of see, listen, you're going to need more help. We've got information. He even got other information, like that Hawkeye dealing with the Thunderbolts is pretty much in charge of dealing with Arnim Zola's kind of launch thing, which would help them out because that's kind of working out with the whole Mega Knight and what that could be used for with the Outer Circle. And the thing is that we just get the wrench of, like, AIM. So it'll be interesting to see how AIM is being utilized by the Outer Circle and which kind of player is utilizing AIM, or if all the players are utilizing AIM. This seems like something that, like, one of maybe the other members would be doing, because Bucky is so new to it. I doubt he would be the one that had been putting this in play first. I think this would be some other kind of player doing it. So we'll see how this kind of works out, what's kind of going on. It's cool that Steve got his allies together, even though they have been sundered apart already, but we'll see how that kind of works out, how that shakes out, what AIM's kind of goal is for what they're doing, and how they're going to be used going forward. Now Steve and his allies will get through and come back together and strike back against the Outer Circle. So those are my opinions on the issue. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.